Imagine going through life with the energy level of a Monday morning, all the time. Fun, right? You wake up, the sun is shining, birds are singing, and yet you just feel meh. Nothing terrible, but nothing exciting either. Maybe you've tried all the usual tips: exercise, kale smoothies, journaling, even those daily affirmations, and sure, all these things help for about 5 minutes. But it doesn't last. It's like there's this invisible wall between you and feeling truly satisfied. So you start to wonder, is this just how adulthood is supposed to feel? And if so, who signed me up for this? Let's be real. If it were as easy as just think positive, none of us would feel this way. This meh feeling isn't loud or urgent, so it's easy to ignore. You just push through and hope it'll fix itself. But, spoiler alert, it won't. That's why in today's video, we're diving into what's really behind this constant flat feeling, the traps that keep you stuck, and how understanding these patterns can be the first step toward feeling joy again. You're not alone. And trust me, what we're uncovering today will feel like someone finally gets it. Understanding the experience. Imagine living life stuck at 50% battery, with no charger in sight. And sure, there are good days, but if the baseline feels stuck at this half-charged state, even the highs don't last. You're doing all the right things, going to work, meeting friends, cooking dinner, but it feels like you're just going through the motions. It's not outright misery, but it's not joy either. It's like your emotions are muted, stuck on meh. Now, this happens to everyone from time to time, right? Stress, a bad week, maybe a tough life event, and things feel a little flat for a while. But then it lifts. For some people, though, that flatline feeling doesn't go away. It's not just a bad mood, it's something more persistent, more insidious. There's actually a name for this: dysthymia. It's not a dramatic storm of sadness. It's more like a steady drizzle that soaks everything. You're not drenched, but you're never really dry either. It's not enough to stop you in your tracks, but it's enough to make everything a little harder, a little grayer. Don't worry, we'll get to the simple, everyday things you can start doing today to chip away at that meh feeling. Think about this. You work hard on a big project, finish it, and look around, waiting for that rush of pride. But instead of feeling accomplished, all you get is, that's done. It's like biting into a piece of cake and not tasting the sugar. You know it's supposed to be good, but it just isn't. So, what do? You try harder. You throw yourself into yoga, meal prepping, meditation, maybe even a new hobby. You switch from coffee to matcha because someone on Instagram said it's grounding. You check all the self-care boxes, but deep down, it's still not enough. That feeling of being stuck or disconnected doesn't budge, no matter how much effort you put in. And here's the kicker. This isn't about you not trying hard enough. It's about a deeper disconnect, a sneaky, internal block that keeps joy just out of reach. Why? Because they've accidentally outsourced their happiness to an imaginary panel of judges. An invisible board of directors whose approval they desperately seek but never seem to get. No standing ovation, no joy. It's like trying to win Employee of the Month in your own life, but no one's handing out the plaques. And that's the trap dysthymia sets. It makes you think you need to do more, when really, the solution lies in figuring out how to reconnect with yourself in a way that feels meaningful again. So, what's keeping you stuck in this constant foggy state? It's not laziness, and it's not because you're not trying hard enough. The truth is, there are common traps, sneaky ones, that make you feel like you're spinning your wheels without going anywhere. Let's break them down, starting with one you might know all too well. But before we dig into those traps, here's something to keep in mind. This video is here to help you reflect, not diagnose or treat. If you're feeling persistently stuck, a mental health professional can provide tailored support that goes beyond these strategies. Common trap number 1, the self-help rabbit hole. Self-help books, the magical promise of a better you, wrapped in motivational quotes and shiny covers. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, this one will fix everything. But here's the thing, while these books can be inspiring, they often oversimplify real struggles. You dive into chapter 1 and it's all, just wake up at 5 a.m., journal, and practice gratitude. Sounds doable, right? But then you hit chapter 7, and suddenly you're supposed to build a vision board, adopt 5 new habits, and completely change your personality. The overwhelm sets in, and when you can't keep up, the blame game begins. Maybe I'm just not trying hard enough. Self-help often ignores the deeper systemic issues, like dysthymia, that can't be solved with a checklist. Instead of helping, these books can make you feel like you're failing at fixing yourself. So, what happens? You buy another book, watch another video. Each one promises to be the solution, but all you're doing is running in circles, chasing quick fixes instead of addressing the root of the problem. It's like putting Band-Aids on a leaky pipe. They might hold for a minute, but the drip doesn't stop. The truth? Fixing yourself isn't about a list. It's about breaking free of the idea that you need to be fixed in the first place. I had a friend who spent years chasing self-help fixes, reading every book, trying every trend. One day, she decided to just paint for no reason. She said it felt pointless at first, but over time, it became her way of reclaiming joy without needing approval. Common trap number 2, toxic positivity. Just think positive. Focus on the bright side. Sound familiar? Toxic positivity is the idea that if you're not smiling through life's challenges, you're doing it wrong. But for someone with dysthymia, this advice isn't just unhelpful, it's harmful. Imagine you're carrying a heavy backpack, and someone tells you, it's all in your head, just pretend it's light. That's toxic positivity in a nutshell. It dismisses the real weight of what you're dealing with and makes you feel guilty for struggling. For people with dysthymia, thinking positive is like pouring glitter on a cracked foundation. It looks nice for a moment, but it doesn't fix the problem. And when the glitter falls off, as it always does, you're left feeling even worse because now, on top of everything, you're not positive enough. And with all the good vibes only noise, it's no wonder you feel like you have to hide how you're really feeling. So you stuff it down, plaster on a smile, and hope no one notices. But bottling it up only makes the meh feeling grow. Now, it's no wonder that traps like toxic positivity can leave you feeling even more disconnected, like you're supposed to fake your way out of a real struggle. But here's the good news. You don't have to play along with that good vibes only game. In fact, one simple shift can help you reclaim the space to process your emotions on your own terms. Let me share a practical tip that can make a real difference starting today. Tip 1. Call out toxic positivity. A while back, I was venting to a friend about feeling stuck, and they hit me with, just focus on the good things. My brain went full stop. The good things? I wanted to respond, buddy, if it were that easy, I'd have solved this years ago. Instead of snapping back, I paused and said, actually, I'm trying to figure out why I feel this way so I can move through it. It was awkward, but it helped me reframe the moment. Toxic positivity doesn't mean people have bad intentions. It just means they don't know how to sit with hard emotions. By doing this, you're not just setting boundaries, you're reclaiming your right to process emotions fully. The next time someone throws a good vibes only at you, try this. Smile, thank them, and say something like, I'm focusing on being okay with feeling everything right now. It sets a boundary without turning it into a debate, and it reminds you that your emotions are valid, even the hard ones. Remember how we started with that Monday morning energy metaphor? That foggy, flatline feeling where everything feels muted? The truth is, breaking out of that isn't about a single big breakthrough. It's about the small, deliberate steps you take every day. It's about reclaiming those tiny sparks of joy without waiting for someone else to cheer you on. So, what's one small step you're going to take this week to break out of the fog? Maybe it's something pointless but fun. Maybe it's giving yourself permission to rest. Whatever it is, remember, those small moments add up. Over time, they can turn even the most meh days into something meaningful. Common trap number 3. If I just achieve more, I'll be happy. You know that little voice in your head that says, just one more thing, one more achievement, and I'll finally feel fulfilled. Sounds motivating, right? But in reality, it's more like being stuck on a hamster wheel, running yourself ragged but getting absolutely nowhere. Spoiler, that finish line you're chasing, it doesn't exist. This trap is sneaky because it feels productive. You keep telling yourself, if I just work harder, try a little more, then I'll feel good about myself. But what actually happens? You achieve something, wait for that rush of fulfillment, and it never comes. It's like playing whack-a-mole with happiness. Every time you think you've caught it, another mole pops up. And here's the thing. People with dysthymia are capable of feeling small hits of joy. Maybe a slice of chocolate cake feels good for a moment, or a new episode of their favorite show provides a brief escape. But that deep, lasting satisfaction, the kind that makes you sit back and say, yeah, I'm proud of myself, their brain's like, sorry, try again tomorrow. So, what happens instead? They chase quick fixes, binging Netflix, endless social media scrolling, snacking on whatever's nearby. It's like trying to slap sprinkles on a piece of cardboard and calling it dessert. Sure, it looks okay for a second, but let's be honest, it's not cutting it. Instead of building real joy, you're patching the cracks with fleeting distractions. These traps all stem from one sneaky source, the dominant other, a voice that makes you seek joy through external validation instead of finding it within yourself. We'll dive into that next. The dominant other and the missing spark. Now, let's talk about the villain in this story, the dominant other. Sounds like the title of a creepy psychological thriller, right? Unfortunately, this one isn't fiction. Recognizing this villain is the first step to loosening its grip. And it's not necessarily a person. It can even be that inner critic inside you, the one that constantly whispers, not good enough, do more, be better. And if you've ever felt like you're stuck in a cycle of seeking approval, this might sound familiar. The dominant other is more than just a voice. It's an idea that, for many of us, starts early. Growing up, maybe your self-worth felt tied to someone else's approval. A parent, a teacher, or even a friend who always made you feel like you needed to do better. Or maybe your parents had their own struggles, and you grew up thinking it was your job to make them feel better. When your sense of value is dependent on someone else's approval, you're always seeking outside validation to feel good about yourself. Maybe you thought, if I make them happy, I'll be happy. And while that might have worked for a while, it came with a cost. Fast forward to adulthood. You're Googling how to be happy during your lunch break, hoping for a magic answer. But here's the twist. The solution isn't in doing more. Instead of enjoying moments just for the sake of it, you find yourself checking imaginary boxes. Get the grades, get the job, pay the bills. And here's the kicker. You're waiting for someone, anyone, to say, you've done enough. But that validation never comes. It's exhausting, isn't it? Remember when you were a small kid and everything felt magical? You didn't need anyone's approval to feel joy. Building a fort out of couch cushions, that was your masterpiece. Pretending to be a superhero, pure bliss. But as we grow up, that magic starts to fade. Expectations creep in, and instead of playing, we start performing, trying to meet someone else's standards of what good enough looks like. The good news? There's a way out of this loop, but it doesn't come from doing more or trying harder. The answer lies in recognizing that the dominant other doesn't have to run your life anymore. And when you unlearn the idea that joy only counts if someone else is clapping, you can start breaking free. All right, we've unpacked a lot today, from the sneaky traps that keep you stuck to the dominant other that loves to steal your joy. But here's the thing, understanding the problem is just the start. In the next video, we'll dive into practical steps to break free, reconnect with yourself, and even tackle the therapy trap. Because yes, even therapy can backfire if you're not careful. I'd love to see you there. And trust me, it's going to be worth it. So, if you're curious and maybe a little ready to give your inner critic the boot, don't forget to subscribe. Now, here's the takeaway. This meh feeling, this flat line that feels like it'll never go away, it's not your fault, and it's not permanent. The traps we fall into, whether it's chasing self-help fixes, faking positivity, or endlessly striving for the next achievement, aren't the solution. And the dominant other, that inner critic or imaginary panel of judges, it doesn't have to run your life forever. The spark of joy you're looking for, it's not something you have to earn. That spark is still in you, buried under layers of expectations and invisible rules. Reconnecting with that part of yourself isn't about doing more, it's about unlearning the idea that joy is something you have to earn. Take a moment after this video to think, what's one trap you're ready to let go of? Thank you so much for watching. Your time and energy matter, and I'm so glad you spent a little of both here. Let's keep this conversation going, and I'll see you in the next video.